Story 1. I got caught having sex with my best friend in the walk-in freezer at work. She said we were on the floor of the freezer, engaging in intimate activities. Trust me, those things are extremely cold. We kept ours at -15 degrees. Nobody is stripping down naked and lying on the bare steel floor to do anything intimate. One of the ladies who didn't even work on our shift told her son it happened, and he spread the rumor at school. I even had a teacher approach the subject with me, and I had to explain that Kathy was not telling the truth. Story 2. I believed I was dead. I discovered who initiated it and why, thought it was amusing, and then decided to go along with it. Story 3. There have been many experiences, but the one that surprised me the most occurred in high school. A girl was claiming that I slept with her. The worst part was that I couldn't get a date to save my life, so I genuinely would have if I had the chance. Story 4. My mom had a long-term work project that moved us to another state for 6 months. When I came back, I was in the 8th grade. I thought I would easily reconnect with my friends and everything would be fine. This was before texting and social media became the norm, but no one would speak to me. I was pushed around a lot and people were just unkind. Apparently, some believed I had moved away to have a baby because I was involved with a 30-year-old. That was news to me. Story 5. I was with my boyfriend because I loved and cared about him. We got married, and 4 years later, I was pregnant. I heard someone gossiping about me in the store where I worked, and they didn't bother to check if I was working or not. Story 6. I had gastric bypass surgery. I've always been a bit heavy, but I have also been agile and athletic. Someone asked about it in our high school class group on Facebook. I replied, "No, I'm still overweight." Story 7. I learned that for a period of time, some people thought I was an alcoholic. This is amusing because I hardly ever drink. I think the last time I took a sip of beer was a year ago. Before that, I had another sip a year prior, and before that, I have no idea. I have been drunk probably 5 times in my adult life and have only consumed alcohol a handful more than that because I dislike it. However, there was a group of people who were with me during 3 of those 5 times when I was drunk, and that was also the only time they were with me. So they just assumed I was a drunk. Story 8. The rumor was that I was having a secret relationship with the office manager. I never confirmed nor denied it, but the truth was I was seeing the vice president in secret. No one ever figured it out. Story 9. A student at school spread a rumor that I was seen kissing a girl somewhere in town. Strangely, I was infatuated with this girl and hoped it would lead to something more. So I acted offended while secretly feeling grateful for the complete fabrication. Of course, nothing came of it. People brushed it off and I returned to being just a friend to her. Story 10. I believed I was not pregnant, as there were many rumors circulating during my high school years. However, after taking a test, I discovered that I was indeed pregnant. Story 11. I do not have negative feelings towards people of any race. I am a black woman with black parents, black friends, and a black spouse. I grew up in a predominantly black neighborhood, attended schools with majority black classmates, and worked alongside black coworkers, supervisors, and mentors. The rumor circulating was so damaging that 2 colleagues I was not particularly close to reported the individual and raised concerns about her behavior. She was terminated by the end of the week. I did not even feel the need to defend myself. It was later revealed that she had also made disparaging comments about my complexion, which was reported and likely contributed to her dismissal due to open prejudice. To this day, I am uncertain why she fixated on me, but it was interesting to say the least. Story 12. I slept with a coworker from summer camp. He started the rumor. The irony is that I had a crush on him all summer. Story 13. I have always been somewhat pale, and when I was a child, I moved to a new high school in 2009. A girl started a rumor that I was the child actor from the movie Unborn. Note: in the UK, high school starts at age 11. Story 14. A popular guy on my high school's hockey team started rumors about me after he tried to touch me inappropriately during a date, despite my clear refusal. After I said no twice, I punched him in the face. When I returned to school on Monday, everyone was discussing how I had slept with the entire hockey team, but the truth was that I was a virgin. Story 15. I borrowed these AirPods from a guy in grade 11. God forbid I forget my headphones and someone lends me a pair during class. Story 16. One time I went silent for a month because I broke my phone, and a group of my friends thought I was dead. Story 17. In high school, a rumor circulated that I was a lesbian. I quickly corrected them. I'm bisexual. Story 18. I identify as a gay black transgender individual. I am a straight white man, and at best, I could be mistaken for a light Hispanic. Story 19. I am actually a girl with all the parts that go along with that. Apparently, the boys were discussing it. My ex told me, and I asked, "Did you tell them they were wrong?" He said no. Story 20. I was perceived as a lesbian because I wore a lot of flannel shirts. My school's dress code required us to wear collared shirts, so that was the easiest option to wear other than a polo. Story 21. I made the finals for American Ninja Warrior around 10 years ago. We were the new family at the elementary school, and a few mothers thought they recognized me from the show where I performed well. One mother asked me about it a few years ago, and I nodded in agreement, asking her to please keep it private. It still comes up every year or so. I just laugh and don't really give an answer now. I'm starting to believe it myself. Story 22. That I am a lesbian because I prefer my hair shorter and I bought a Subaru. Since when is that the official car of the LGBTQ community? Story 23. I joined a cult. The truth is much more embarrassing. I became really into CrossFit and couldn't stop talking about it for 3 months. Story 24. My future wife was told that I had a child with a woman I had never met. I still do not know who spread this information. Story 25. In middle school, I was very modest. So when I heard that I had stripped naked and run around the school, it was a bit of a shock. Story 26. I had been intimate with more than 30 coworkers in a single month. As the sole female, I was an easy target. At another job, I was labeled a lesbian because I didn't socialize with coworkers after hours. I had short hair and worked in engineering. The truth is, I really didn't like them. I started dating a guy in a different department, and then I heard rumors that I was trying to hide my secret by dating an unaware straight guy. Story 27. I have had nosy coworkers spread a rumor that I was pregnant twice at different jobs. The first time was when I was 22 and ordered a Shirley Temple at a work happy hour. The reality is that I just don't drink and never have. They didn't know that but made assumptions. Later, a coworker admitted that they and my team had watched my stomach for months afterward and were surprised when I wasn't pregnant. The second time was when I was 28 and had put in my notice at a different job. One male colleague in his 70s had an old school idea that the only reason women ever quit jobs is because they are pregnant or getting married. Before asking me why I was leaving, he spread a rumor around the office that I was leaving because I was getting married in a shotgun wedding and moving away. I was single, not pregnant, and not moving. He eventually asked me if I was pregnant and was shocked when I said I was leaving because I had found a different job. My life is not that exciting. I just don't drink, and I wanted to leave a toxic job. That is all. Story 28. My partner and I were using someone else's dorm room for intimacy. It started as a joke from a mutual friend, and we quickly put a stop to it. Story 29. I am a member of a group. I am part of a private organization. I am in a relationship with some people at work, and the list goes on. Story 30. Most of my coworkers thought I was gay for the first 3 months, but I am definitely not gay. That rumor ended when one of the guys worked up the courage to ask me about it. Story 31. I was considering harming my school. This rumor originated from girls who bullied me because of my ADHD. I have never really hated anyone, except for my 5th grade teacher. Story 32. I was having a torrid affair with a woman from a neighboring community, a woman I had never met. Story 33. My wife was a stripper when I married her. No lie, my college friends brought that up after my divorce. So what the heck? Story 34. I was unemployed during that time, and honestly, I wish I had been working for a drug cartel because then I would have had some income. Story 35. A person I was connected with on Twitter spent about 9 months making fun of me for getting rejected by my cousin. Nothing like that ever happened. I suspect he may have faced rejection from his cousin and decided to involve me in his fantasy when I tweeted about the time I emailed my cousin and received no response. Story 36. Someone started a rumor that I was gay for a childhood friend because they saw me laughing at something said. The person claimed it was just her and her roommate who made the joke, but someone I hadn't seen in years brought it up to me. Story 37. I stole a motorcycle from my father's garage 40 years ago. I confronted Dad recently, and he said he didn't know where that idea came from and that he was never missing a motorcycle. Story 38. A rumor circulated in my workplace when I first started that I was divorced. I was about 23 when I got hired and have no idea where that came from. Story 39. I left that particular workplace because I had stopped receiving incentives from the supervisor for all the extra work. I specifically organized the stationery orders and transferred paper from the boxes into the small cupboard under the printers. Story 40. I believe the only rumors I heard that were not true were the ones stating that I had slept with someone when I had not. This happened twice. Story 41. Back in July 2024, a rumor circulated within a building that I cross-dress. At that time, I was a completely straight male with a beard and short hair. Story 42. Some people genuinely thought I was a lesbian, despite my numerous boyfriends in school outweighing my 3 girlfriends. On a related note, rumors spread that I was planning to break up with one of those girlfriends before it had ever crossed my mind. High school is strange. Story 43. I had spoken negatively about my classmate. The teacher believed the rumor and made me apologize to the person I had spoken negatively about. Story 44. I have a high tolerance for low temperatures. In high school, it was rumored that I was a failed genetics experiment. Story 45. Someone said I stabbed someone, but all I stabbed was a cardboard chocolate milk carton. I still got suspended. Story 46. I was selling drugs from my apartment. I got evicted because of it. I have never used drugs and have no idea how a rumor like that started. Story 47. Not me, but my friend Elle in high school. She was very tall and athletic, but she would frequently sprain or break her leg. I remember joking to a teacher that she should just replace her leg with a wooden leg to avoid the trouble. Tessa, the biggest gossip with the lowest critical thinking skills, was listening. Later that week, Elle approached me and mentioned that someone asked if she had a wooden leg. My sister, you are the least serious person on this earth. Story 48. I used to run a Jiffy Lube in my hometown. A few years prior, I was a cam girl, and the manager whose position I took at the Jiffy Lube was an old customer of mine. He filed a complaint that initiated an entire human resources investigation to ensure that the manager of the lube shop, which was me, did not dance naked in front of the cameras after hours. I wish I had made that up, honestly. Story 49. In high school, I was writing a paper on religion and had a Wiccan website open on my computer. A friend saw it and started a rumor that I worshipped the devil. It was an interesting week. Story 50. One girl claimed she had the best experience of her life with me. We were just engaging in heavier petting, but it spread quickly at the workplace among female colleagues, so I didn't intervene. Story 51. There were rumors circulating in town that I was involved with my sister. Eventually, these rumors reached my parents, who confronted both of us about it. This incident occurred shortly after I had been arrested for public indecency, so my parents viewed me as a deviant. When I denied the allegations, they did not believe me. I felt the need to concede something to calm them down, as they firmly believed my sister and I were involved. I admitted to spying on my sister in the bathroom and having inappropriate thoughts while she was in the shower, but that was all. To make a long story short, a huge fight ensued, and our family was torn apart. Story 52. I have my top 5 rumors that I've heard. This may be long. I was a subject of the rumor mill in high school, I guess because I had cancer then. I don't know. Here are some of the funniest and strangest ones I've ever heard. I'm from Canada. I was in a relationship with 7 guys at the same time. This rumor stemmed from me hanging out with my brother and several of his friends, about 90% of whom were male. They were all older but like brothers to me, and I was like their little sister. In no way did any of us date. In fact, my boyfriend, now husband, was present during most of these outings. Honestly, the only thought I had after hearing this was, who has that much energy? I was secretly rich and only acting poor. I have no idea why anyone would do this. My family was well off, so they gave me a lot of name-brand clothing as gifts, but they would never financially help my parents. My grandfather bought the house my family lived in after a bad situation when I was young that could have resulted in my brother and me being homeless along with our parents. My grandfather's exact words were, "I don't care if my son and his wife are homeless, but I'll be damned if my grandkids are." So he bought them a house without asking. The fact that there was a rumor out there that I was secretly rich was probably the single funniest thing I had ever heard. I was in a very famous band. I grew up during the scene era. At that time, there was a popular Canadian band that my brother and I hung out with because they needed a new roadie. My brother took up that role for them. A lot of their shows were local to the Midwest, so they often visited similar areas or the same venue. I suppose this may have also aided in this "she's from Canada" rumor. I am not from Canada. In fact, I don't even have a passport and have never been close to the border of Canada. I went on a blind date with Andy Biersack, the lead singer of Black Veil Brides. For context, I had cancer when I was about 15 years old. Someone decided to spread the rumor that I went on a blind date with Andy for my Make-A-Wish. I have attended about 3 Black Veil Brides shows since the early 2010s, and I can almost 1000% assure you that, aside from maybe being about 25 feet from the stage and crossing paths on the way to my ride, I have never even met Andy Biersack. I don't necessarily have any sort of wish to meet Andy either. I actually did have a Make-A-Wish, and I used it to go on a shopping spree with my best friend and have a lavish meal, including a limo with my family. So nope, this never happened. I have no idea why anyone made a rumor about this. For whatever reason, people found the topic of me doing strange and unlike me things interesting, especially considering the fact that I am shy and would never agree to meet Andy because I would probably internally freak out. Story 53. My brother and I ate fried chicken together twice a week in the law school parking lot after classes ended for the day. It was cookies, by the way. Story 54. Some girl I barely knew spread the rumor that I dropped out of high school because I was pregnant and wasn't telling anyone. I had moved to the alternative high school because I was extremely ill and had dropped to about 90 pounds, so I definitely didn't fit the description. Plus, I kept in contact with my real friends, and they knew there was no truth to her story. It was just strange because I barely knew her name, much less why she would latch on to me. Story 55. In high school, there was another girl with the same first name, so people mistakenly believed I had multiple abortions during my sophomore year, when it was actually her. It was strange that people spoke poorly of me for no reason. Story 56. In high school, I was close to one teacher who told me that another teacher said I came to school intoxicated. I didn't even drink at that time. Story 57. Being quiet or different is not the same as being a bad person. Before the term introvert became popular and understood by many, people often interpreted it as being moody or a bad individual. Story 58. I changed high schools at the end of 9th grade. Some people at my previous school said I had died. I didn't inform anyone about my change. Story 59. A supervisor once thought a coworker and I utterly despised each other. Hey, before you go on vacation, I hate to ask this, but can you train Mike to do the task I was really good at? Yeah, no problem. Really? I was nervous about even putting you two in the same room. Mike and I never raised our voices at one another. I have no idea what the supervisor was thinking. Mike and I both had a good chuckle about it when I was training him. Story 60. I was an alcoholic and was drunk most days in high school. This was all because I am extremely clumsy. I would trip over nothing, fall while standing still, crash into things, fall down the stairs multiple times, and struggle to walk on a flat surface. This was also before I learned that my eyesight is poor, so I couldn't really see the ground in front of me. I was even called to a meeting with the counselor and the school doctor regarding my alleged alcoholism. The truth is I never drank in high school and I don't drink now. I just never started, as it is dangerous to mix alcohol with the medication I need to take. Story 61. My brother and I are 3 years apart, which meant we had many overlapping friends as we got older. We attended college in cities about 20 minutes apart, with some shared acquaintances like his friend's younger sisters going to my school. He and his friends would always throw big parties and invite their siblings. However, my brother never wanted me around because he thought I would tell on him, which made no sense. When his friends asked why I was never invited, he would say I was severely depressed. I'm charismatic and fun. At times, I'd say even more so than my brother, so hearing that was really shocking. I only found out because someone we both knew told me, "I don't know why your brother thinks you're depressed," after meeting me. Story 62. My ex-best friend and roommate told our mutual friends that I was stealing money from her and keeping her trapped in the house. In reality, the money I was supposedly stealing was just the rent she paid to live with me. I am not sure where the idea of being trapped came from. We were both adults, but she frequently started and quit jobs, often staying in her room whenever she was between jobs while I worked full-time. Story 63. Me acostaba con un profesor en la universidad. La verdad es que eso nunca ocurrió. Hasta el punto que perdí esa clase y tuve que pagar los créditos para repetirla al semestre siguiente. Sorpresa, la gente seguía diciendo que me acostaba con él. Story 64. All of these events occurred at my previous workplace. I had a brief encounter with a colleague who stopped at my desk to make small talk during lunch. I was involved with the finance manager because we had a closed-door meeting to discuss company finances that impacted business deals in my department, for which I had to process paperwork. I was not being fired for those encounters. I had a closed-door meeting with my direct supervisor, which was actually my annual performance review. I was receiving a raise for excellent performance, not being terminated. I drove a large conversion van because my parents allowed me to use it while my car was in the shop, and not for any inappropriate reasons. I came into work on Saturdays when the building was empty, which was often accompanied by my 3 children, to avoid distractions while working. I was not the only one affected by the rumors. This happened to every woman in the company unless she was of retirement age. If she was under 50, she was fair game for speculation. Women were the minority in this organization, with only about 20 to 30 women among 850 employees. I have never been so glad to leave a job in my life. I had never encountered a workplace with such an active rumor mill. It was the most absurd situation I have ever experienced. Story 65. I was kidnapped when I was 13, and the next day when I showed up at school, everyone was crying and hugging me because they all thought I was dead. Story 66. I was engaged to my coworker. We are just really good friends, and we found it hilarious that the students thought I made enough to buy the ring. Story 67. I tried to pursue a coworker and made her my girlfriend, even though everyone, including me, knew she had a boyfriend and was in a long-term relationship with him. It upset me because I liked her a lot and developed feelings for her for a while, but since the beginning of her career at our company, I had no intentions beyond being close friends. Unfortunately, it turned out that I became the worst person imaginable and labeled a girlfriend thief. Once, I sent her a Lil Peep song, but instead of asking me about it, she misinterpreted my intentions and thought I was calling her a derogatory name. As you can imagine, later on, a few versions of what happened between us circulated around the workplace, definitely becoming the gossip of the year. The main and most favored version was that I was a very bad person because I allegedly tried to pursue her, but she laughed it off and refused, so I called her derogatory names. Gossip can be really harmful, and I've learned my lesson. I wasn't smart, as no one is, but seeking revenge to a certain level while knowing it's false and still pushing it through with full confidence and cold calculation is pure evil. It has been over a year since it happened, and they can still be very unkind to me because of that gossip. I have withdrawn from any kind of relationship with them, so I don't care anymore. Story 68. In high school, some rumors started that I was using drugs because I was very energetic and a bit eccentric. But I actually just drank a lot of coffee and was simply quirky. Story 69. I dealt with my girlfriend's stalker and got him to leave her alone, but he spread a rumor that one of my friend's girlfriends was cheating on him with me. These women happen to be in the same field of work, but are from 2 different countries and work for 2 different companies. I despise cheating, and my friends knew this. I have completely cut people off for even discussing cheating on their partners. Unfortunately, they believed the stalker over me, so I lost an entire friend group of about 7 years. Story 70. I was labeled a prostitute. I was approached by boys in my grade because of it, and I was asked about it so frequently that it contributed to my decision to change schools. I am 15 years old. Story 71. I had been permanently disabled in an accident and was living in the woods with my boyfriend, who was caring for me. I had hurt my knee, but I healed and returned to work bartending, much to the surprise of several patrons. Story 72. At my last job, it was rumored that I was stealing male enhancement pills. Everyone there knew that I am a woman and that my husband has a heart condition that makes taking that kind of medication dangerous for him. It was very interesting to hear about because I found it quite surprising. Story 73. I died from an overdose. I had moved across the country and discovered this when I returned for a visit. I ran into some people at the mall who were amazed that I was alive. Story 74. I had a sexual encounter with a girl in our high school bathroom. Even though the reality was that I was not attractive back then, it never made sense to me how that even happened. Story 75. In graduate school, there was intense speculation that my classmate and I were dating. As far as I could tell, the rumors were solely due to the fact that we were each single and that I left a monthly party with my classmate and her roommates, which was held on campus. We weren't even close friends and didn't hang out much. It was bizarre when, in the weeks after, people were saying, "I heard you and so we're dating." People must have just been bored. That 5 months later we would indeed start to date and ultimately get married, 7 years together now, is entirely irrelevant and coincidental. Story 76. I was unfaithful to my boyfriend with my best friend. The interesting part is that years ago I told people she and I were dating because she couldn't get her creepy ex off her back. We spent a lot of time together, so I think they assumed we were still in a relationship and that I was just cheating on her. The even funnier part? She is friends with my boyfriend. Story 77. I was Jewish. There was no malice in it, but for some reason I had to deny being Jewish for about 2 years in high school. It was probably related to my thick, curly black hair. Story 78. I started going to the gym after graduating high school and slimmed down quite a bit. Later, I began dating a girl who graduated a year after me, and one of her friends tried to sabotage the relationship by saying I was clearly using drugs. I had never touched any substance and never will. Story 79. When I was 12, I missed class for 2 days, and when I returned, all my classmates thought I had committed suicide for some reason. Story 80. I had an unusual experience during a camping trip with some friends, or I'm waiting to be with my husband long enough to share our assets. Story 81. I was pregnant during my sophomore year of high school. I was a huge virgin. Apparently, a girl at another school got pregnant, which became a topic of conversation because it was a Catholic school. The administrators in the office were discussing it. A classmate overheard but mistakenly thought she heard my name and told everyone at school. I found out when my neighbor, who was a grade ahead of me, called and tried to casually get information from me. When I finally asked her why she was asking such strange questions, she said, "Wait, so it's not true?" Story 82. I work in healthcare, so it's an office full of women, and I'm literally the only male. I started the rumor that I'm well endowed. I am not. It seemed like a good idea at the time. Story 83. I identified as a lesbian because I referred to my partner instead of my boyfriend, as the term boyfriend feels juvenile at the age of 60. Story 84. In high school, someone started a rumor that I have a massive anatomy. Wouldn't you typically start a rumor that it's small? Story 85. My brother is evil. He convinced me that I was adopted and that no one would ever love me. He convinced my college roommates to pretend they couldn't see me. Seriously, they tried to walk through me. I became very depressed and thought about ending my life. My priest noticed the change in me and recommended that I come see him to talk. To this day, I have an irrational fear that people can't see me. I ask my best friend all the time, "You can see me, right?" Story 86. I died from a drug overdose. It was the strangest rumor because anyone who knows me knows I've never used drugs. Story 87. I heard a rumor in high school that I was having regular, inappropriate relations with the most attractive girl in my graduating class. She was voted most attractive in our senior superlatives. I was so embarrassed that I stopped talking to her to prevent the rumors from spreading and to ensure she didn't assume I was the one who started them. It wasn't until about 10 years later that I realized she was the one going around falsely claiming that we were involved. I'm still angry at myself for not recognizing it earlier. Story 88. In high school, a girl I was friends with told others that I was stalking my best friend and that I was obsessed with him. She claimed our friendship was solely based on my supposed stalking. Meanwhile, he was so excessively focused on me that I ultimately had to distance myself from him as an adult. I also remember the rumors that I worship Satan and don't speak at all. Story 89. I had a cocaine addiction, which is why I lost so much weight. The truth was that I was walking everywhere. I lived within walking distance to get to places, such as work or the grocery store, and saved money by not using my car. Additionally, grieving the loss of my best friend of 16 years really affected my appetite. Story 90. I went to school with a girl who was a compulsive liar. She and I became really good friends, and we often talked about her lies. She once told someone that I bathed in purple chicken skin. Story 91. I was a narcissistic misogynist. All I did was talk to girls without developing feelings because I have autism. Story 92. I used to put a lot of substances up my nose with a girl I barely knew. She reported this to my ex-boyfriend, and it had been about 5 years since we had seen each other. Additionally, she was running for political office at the time. Story 93. People said I stayed at my job for the money. I was a pastor in Northern Virginia making $50,000 per year when the median household income was $110,000, living in a $1,600 per month tiny townhouse. Story 94. I was accused of being a Nazi because I listened to Rammstein. It became frustrating when someone randomly tried to choke me outside the school library. Story 95. My parents moved during my senior year of high school. As the new student, I thought it was strange that no one tried to bully me. Bullying had been an issue, but nobody even attempted it. I found out through my best friend at graduation that there was a rumor I had been released from juvenile detention for stabbing someone. I was a good student. Story 96. When I was in high school, a rumor spread that I was in county lockup for committing a petty crime. In reality, another student and I were touring the county jail for a story for the school newspaper. People asked my best friend where I was, and he told them I was in jail without providing any other details. That's all it took for people to create elaborate stories about how and why that happened. Even my band teacher believed it. The funny thing is, I was clearly not the type of kid to have any kind of encounter with the law, but people believed it anyway. Story 97. At the time, I was around 25, training a new hire who was about 21. We were both men, and I was engaged to my now wife. An older coworker advised my trainee, "Don't get too close. He's not what you think." The trainee felt awkward for about 2 weeks until I found out. We all had a good laugh. Story 98. I ran into a former coworker at a pet store several years after she had retired. When she spotted me, she looked shocked because she said she heard I had died. It turns out that there was another person with the same first and last name as mine living in the same town at that time. Story 99. I moved provinces when I was 12 and returned to my original province in the same area of the city 5 years later. When I started high school, there were several kids I had grown up with since I was 5 who attended that school. They all said they heard I got into a fight a couple of years ago and died. The strangest thing was that my sister had already been attending that school for a year, and no one asked her anything about it. Story 100. Not about myself, but about my dad. He was involved in a situation where someone was killed at his workplace. It was very disturbing to hear. Fortunately, they caught the killer not long afterwards. Story 101. I smelled the math teacher's derriere. The person who started the rumor was the one I dared to smell the math teacher's derriere. He did. Story 102. I disliked a guy on my bus in high school. I learned this from him 2 years after I graduated. Turns out that a guy from my gym class told him I hated him. I had never spoken to either of those guys during my 4 years of high school, but now I can say, forget you. Chris from gym class. Story 103. A couple of years ago, a colleague informed me that someone in a Facebook group was discussing rumors about me sleeping with her partner, apparently in a group dedicated to such topics. She advised me to confirm whether my boyfriend was actually married, which I appreciated as an attempt to give me the benefit of the doubt. However, since I was neither dating nor involved with anyone, there was not much I could do about the situation. Story 104. I was the nephew of a significant crime boss in Ireland about 20 years ago. I can assure you that we are not related. Story 105. I had an overdose on heroin and nearly died, and I was still in the hospital. This was sent to me in an email while I was reading on a personal computer in the college library. I have never touched heroin in my life, and I have no idea who spread that information, but the sender of the email was relieved that I hadn't died. Story 106. I have had people tell their friends they have slept with me when I have never even interacted with them in person. Story 107. Not sure if this counts, but some people thought I was mute in middle school. I just did not feel like talking. Story 108. One time, I stole 30 loaves of Subway bread. Except I didn't. Turns out my coworker was the real bread thief but blamed me. What's funny is that I'm not the type to do something like that. I panic if I take 2 mints instead of 1. Story 109. I sold cocaine and had a gun when I was 15. My friend told her mother, and her mother informed my mom, who laughed. Story 110. In 4th grade, a girl named Rose started a rumor that I had AIDS. Fortunately, I didn't let it bother me, and it didn't gain much attention, but it was still upsetting. I was a kind child, never a bully, and always stood up for those who were marginalized. I don't know why she did that. It was strange. I hope she is doing well. Story 111. In high school, I moved to a new school in a small town. I went to a house party that ended up getting busted by the police. I happened to live next to the police station, so the kids started a rumor that I was a police officer in my 20s posing as a high school student to shut down parties. I was only 16. I guess everyone saw 21 Jump Street. Story 112. A colleague at my workplace was telling others that I am gay solely because I spoke to her about my interest in cooking. It seems her judgment of people's sexual orientation is quite far off the mark. Story 113. I heard I got caught in the bushes a few years ago. I lived and worked at a ski resort in Canada at the time, so the chances of me being in such a situation are slim. Story 114. There's a lot to unpack. I get mistaken for a celebrity, but no one can tell me the person's name or the show. One of my friend groups started a rumor that I'm a swinger and that I've had relationships with several people they know. But I haven't. This rumor seems to circulate widely about many different individuals. I've also been accused of being a criminal because I work in cybersecurity. Story 115. I think it started because my grandma was involved with a senior patrol program where retired individuals check on homes of people who are on vacation. Apparently, that meant I was considered a narc. Story 116. I left my small, conservative town for a large, liberal city, and the rumors were that I was using hard drugs and funding that lifestyle through adult entertainment. I suppose that occasionally smoking marijuana and dating girls I didn't attend elementary school with were exaggerated by anyone who looked at my early 2010s Facebook profile. Story 117. That my breast fell out of my dress at my high school prom. I found out a year later. Maybe it did and managed to fall back into my dress? I don't know. Story 118. I faced a horrible rumor in high school alleging that I harmed children. I reported it to the principal, and the rumor was addressed quickly. Story 119. People thought I was a Mormon because they never heard me swear or drink coffee. However, that is not the case. I don't know much about it. I didn't swear there because clients were always around, and while I do drink coffee, it's just not my favorite. Story 120. I had breast implants while I was in high school. I am not very large-chested, so it was a noticeable contrast given my small frame. There was also a rumor that I supposedly got the implants for or used the profits from stripping. Again, I was in high school, In reality, I was a big nerd doing tutoring in chemistry and calculus. Story 121. I always wore hoodies in high school, and someone started a rumor that I wore them because I didn't wear a bra. I was just very skinny with low iron, always cold, and I didn't like to show skin due to past trauma. When I heard it, I wasn't upset. I just thought, is that the best people could come up with? Story 122. I shaved my cat so that I could care for it. I was around 13 or 14 at the time. We had a long-haired cat that had trouble grooming himself. His fur would get knotted, especially near his tail, so the veterinarian shaved his lower half. After hearing the rumors a few times, I just agreed and said, yes, I care for my cat. Ironically, the rumor died down after I took that approach. It actually helped me in a strange way with my attitude in the future. Story 123. I ran into some childhood friends and classmates in my early 20s whom I had gone to middle school with. I attended a different high school than they did, and my way of processing it at the time was to not tell them I wouldn't be seeing them again and just quietly move on. I discovered that some of my former friends approached me on the street to say I looked just like a friend of theirs who had died. After some back and forth, I learned they were referring to me. The rumor had spread that I had died over summer break before high school. I also found out they had grieved for me, and discovering that I was alive really affected them. Story 124. I threw a turtle that someone was keeping as a pet out of a window on the third floor of the freshman college dorm where I was staying at the time. I never touched the turtle, but people were convinced it was me. Someone threw it because it was found bleeding in the parking lot near the building. Story 125. I smashed up and robbed a friend's pub while I was 3,000 miles away, living in another country for over a year. He never spoke to me again. It's been 15 years. Story 126. I once heard a rumor that I disliked a girl, so I asked her directly, "Why do you think I hate you?" After that, she pretended we were the best of friends, but that's when I really started to dislike her because I saw how insincere she was. Story 127. I was told every day by my parents that it was my fault I was born. They also said it was my fault I was born a girl. Story 128. A woman I once worked with told my mother I was having an affair with her in the storage room of the local slaughterhouse. My mother was quick to believe her rather than me. I never even touched her. There were quite a few rumors about me having relationships with various colleagues. I never have. One colleague was so offended by the rumors that she stopped talking to me. Story 129. I broke my leg in high school and was home for a couple of weeks. When I returned, people thought I had died. Story 130. Oh man, if I had $1 for every rumor spread about me in school, I would be very wealthy. Some highlights include: I was labeled promiscuous, I was said to be a lesbian, I was claimed to be a drag queen, I was identified as intersex, I was rumored to have tuberculosis, I was said to have died, I was accused of being a drug addict, and I was falsely claimed to have planned to shoot up the school, despite this being 2 years after I graduated and moved away. Story 131. I was accused of being completely fake and just being strange for attention back in high school. I was not pretending to be a weird little kid. I truly was that weird. Story 132. A classmate asked me if I am a lesbian and dating my best friend. We studied in an all-girls school. I do not know why she asked that strange question. Story 133. I was someone who took other girls' boyfriends when I was still too shy to have my first kiss. Story 134. I am considered mentally unstable for posting song lyrics on my Instagram profile and highlighting changes in the way people speak. Story 135. During the movie, the Utah Jazz required a negative COVID-19 test to enter the games. So I left work about an hour early to get a rapid test before the game that night. I am in my car, waiting for the nurse to reach in and swab my nose when my boss calls to ask what I am doing. Confused, I told him I am in line at a COVID-19 testing center for the Jazz game, just as I had informed him earlier. A rumor had been circulating that I was going to a job fair after work, which prompted my manager to contact our district manager about giving me a retention raise. Nobody knows who started the rumor or why, but it resulted in an additional 95 cents per hour, so I don't care. Story 136. In the 7th grade, We went to Disneyland for a trip. I was out of school for about 5 to 7 days. When I returned, everyone was asking me if I was okay. I soon learned that there were two separate rumors going around. The first was that I had taken my own life, which was wrong and outrageous in itself. The second rumor, however, was even more bizarre. It claimed that I had gotten pregnant. This is ironic because I had only ever had a couple of boyfriends, and I hadn't even kissed them. It was well known that I was inexperienced and had no desire to change that. To this day, I don't know where it originated, but even the teachers were aware of it. I will never understand what about my absence that week led the middle schoolers to spread such rumors. Story 137. I heard that I competed in the hippie Olympics. Many people told me about it, so I have to assume that I did, even though I have absolutely no recollection of it. Too many people are sharing similar stories. I must have been there, but I don't have a single memory of any of it. Story 138. The strangest rumor about me that ever reached me was that a couple of years before leaving my hometown, I somehow went to several schools around town, shot a group of kids, and got away with it. Management at my job at the time tried to convince all of my coworkers that it happened right after I went home the day before. One friend on the stock crew came over to inform me about what was being said about me just as I clocked in the next day. Two others defended me and dismissed the manager's claims. Until I quit a little over 2 years later, they made no effort to fire me, pursue legal action, or remove me from the sporting goods department, where I was selling firearms and ammunition for them. Story 139. That I was a Satan worshiper. I was a supposed goth in high school. My go-to outfit was a white t-shirt and blue jeans. I guess that's too wild and crazy for the small town I grew up in, and it made people talk. Story 140. I wished I knew how to remotely access someone's answering machine. In the mid-1990s, I didn't have their password, had never been to their house to inspect the machine, nor did I have any desire to. However, this person's new friend convinced her I could and erased her messages. It was an overwhelming experience of being pushed out of someone's life due to their possessiveness. I was just glad to move on without looking back. Story 141. I had my appendix removed and missed a week and a bit of university. On the day I returned, we were divided into groups for an assignment, and my group refused to give me an equal share of the work because of what I had been through. I tried to convince them I was fine and more than capable of taking on more, but they involved the lecturer, who agreed with the group and assured me he would still grade me as if I had contributed equally. I was so confused by this outpouring of empathy until I bumped into one of my former group members a semester later. She asked me how I was coping since the loss. I laughed and replied that I was still trying to come to terms with leading an appendix-free life. Turns out that the entire class had heard my time in the hospital and absence from university was due to the death of my mother. It's been 10 years, and I still have no idea where that rumor came from. Oh, and my mom is still very much alive. Story 142. I was responsible for a local band breaking up. I dated a guy from the band, and one of his friends, also in the band, didn't like me. He told the guy not to date me because I wasn't pure, but the band had already dissolved by then. I never corrected it, though. It made me feel powerful. Story 143. I was perceived as a stuck-up, spoiled, only child from a wealthy background. In reality, I was very shy, had 7 siblings, and my father was retired from the military and worked as a mail carrier for 20 years. Story 144. There was a rumor going around school that a girl I was friends with and one of my mates had a threesome in her front yard. Someone from school drove past, witnessed this event, and spread the word. It ended up getting back to all of us. The sad thing is, my first sexual experience that others knew about wasn't even real. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.